You're listening to the New Dominion podcast, where we engage in curious and faith-filled conversations about stewarding our health and community with others. We're so glad you're here. Let's get started. Good morning.
Good morning.
Or afternoon.
Good day.
Good day, folks.
Good
Good to be
afternoon, good
here.
evening, good night.
We're done?
And we're out. Thanks for listening. Oh, today's a good episode. I'm excited.
Do you guys want to get close to the camera and see if anybody has anything in our teeth?
No.
I
Good
did have
Lord,
chia
Brett.
seed pudding this morning. You know those chia seeds. But no one told me about it before we got on the podcast and talked to each other before. So that would be, great things to dissect in our conversation today if you guys did not tell me I had chia seeds in my teeth.
That would be very relevant. So the title of our episode is, Hey, You've Got Spinach in Your Teeth, which is maybe weird because there are a lot of people that are driving around in their cars listening to this or watching it on camera and going, I haven't eaten spinach in years. Or I definitely didn't eat any this morning. Why are they telling me? Why is this the name of the podcast?
It's the name of this week's podcast episode because there's so much to talk about when it comes to telling someone that there's spinach in their teeth. It's uncomfortable for me to tell someone that there's spinach in their teeth, even if it's Taylor or you, Kirsten, or my kids, let alone someone that I just marginally know. I usually have like an internal conversation for a second of like, should I do this? Like, how should I say it? And then I just say it. But also on the flip side, like if someone tells me, I have like a weird reaction at first, like, oh, like I feel bad. And then I'm like grateful that they told me, but I'm kind of, I guess embarrassed is the word, right? I'm kind of embarrassed.
There's a certain level of
and
like
then-
having someone focus on you so intently. And
Yeah, like they saw my teeth.
They're focusing on my teeth. My God. And they haven't even listened to what I've said over the last 3 minutes because they've just been staring at this thing, trying to work up the gumption to say, hey, man, you got something.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And the third, I mean, there's not three sides of a coin, but the third side of the coin is
That's
if
proverbial
you
coin that
go
doesn't exist.
home- Yeah. If you go home and you see the spinach in your teeth and nobody has told you all night, like you went out with friends, I'm questioning my friendships. Like, why didn't anybody tell me? I've been smiling. I've been laughing. Either they're really unaware, which is another conversation, I guess, to have, but likelihood someone saw and just didn't tell you.
I also think that
And-
if it's a party and I've been there for a long time, I would assume I would have to use the restroom at some point. And then I go home and I notice I had something in my teeth. I'm like, well, why didn't you notice it? Like,
Like,
Oh,
why
like
did
your-
yeah, like
Self-
are you not paying attention to your own stuff? Like, I mean, like
Oh,
that just got a lot deeper than I meant it to, but that's where we're getting. So
Man, that was deep. We didn't write that in our podcast notes for today, but we can address it if we need to.
So we're kind of talking about more than spinach in our teeth and about blind spots in general in this episode and why we need other people, or the fact that we do need other people to point things out in our lives, why we need people to point things out, and also the fact that we need to take courageous steps toward pointing things out in other people's lives, like habits that could be hurting us and having those brave conversations about change.
Yeah, and it all goes together with dominion, right? And stewardship and owning up to those hard things and uncomfortable things.
Yeah. So something that we have talked about a little bit in the other episodes and alluded to is how we don't want to shy away from hard things and how this is a hard thing, but also we want to be pointing out things in other people's lives and in our lives that are keeping us from growing. And a word that we have thrown out and kind of combats the comfort driven or striving for comfort parts of our lives and our culture is hormesis. What
does
I
hormesis mean? Taylor, do you know what hormesis means?
I know what homeostasis means, but
that's a good word. Homeostasis means balance.
staying just like kind of in balance, steady, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So hormesis is the like official medical scientific term for putting yourself under stress. It's like a physiological term. when your body is under stress, like exercise is a great example of hormesis. It actually, even though it's uncomfortable and it's sometimes maybe a little painful, it actually strengthens you and makes you stronger for the next day or the next event where you have to do whatever physical activity it might be. So, although squats at the gym may not be fun, that hormetic drive in your physiology will build up your muscles so that the next time you're going to pick your toddler up and you squat, it's going to be a lot easier because hormesis. It's grown you, even though it was uncomfortable. And then you have a new state of homeostasis because you're not going to be, kind of balanced where you were. You've kind of changed physiology and now you're balanced in a new place.
Why would someone want to enter hormesis or push their bodies into hormesis?
Why would someone want to do hard things? Is that what you're saying?
Like pointing out spinach in our teeth or
working out or
going to counseling.
I can speak for me. I can speak for what my clients say, but for me, I kind of have learned that if I'm not growing, then the opposite is dying. Like there is no status quo that we stay in, like we just sit in this one space forever. Either you're going towards something new and growing, or you're regressing and going backwards. And I think there's a certain element of that in relationships. Marriages diverge away from each other if you're not intentionally turning in, right? There's that with your health, your mental health, physical health, in terms of weight or anxiety, depression, etc. So I think there's just a lot of applications here. But why? I think, people probably have different reasons for it, probably erupting from chaos or crisis in their life. But
I mean, the verse that comes to my mind is this, that Jesus came to give us life and life to the fullest. Like basic physiology is painful. Like look at a baby, right? That's all uncomfortable. Child development is uncomfortable, not just through the awkward teen years, but like from the get-go. It's hard to pull yourself up and cruise the furniture. It's hard to take steps and take a chance. And I think as adults, I'm just speaking out of my own story, like once you hit a wall in something or your health declines or you have a challenge relationally, it's so much easier to not stand back up. And face whatever it is you have to face. It's so uncomfortable, but we are built from basic physiology to do hard things. That's the whole way we develop. Even you could use the seed of, any plant. You have to break that seed open for the plant to grow through. Like that breaking is uncomfortable for the seed, but there's better to come. And I think we forget in the pain that there's better to come. And I mean, that's my mantra in the office, in the chiropractic office, of people having pain, like pain is the first thing that takes away our hope. It's a hope killer.
Yeah.
And so when we're in pain or we're in discomfort, we forget that this is moving us through. Or my new term that I discovered a couple years ago, we're leveling up. Like that helps my brain realize, like, okay, this sucks, but Super Mario Brothers goes through my head. Like I beat King Koopa and I'm going to the next level.
Wow, you went all the way back there. Okay.
I did.
Good.
Can we also just name that I've been up since 2:30 this morning? So the things that come out of my mind and the connections that are being made, it just might not be your norm, but it could be entertaining. So let's roll with it.
I mean, that is 8 hours. You've been up for 8 hours already.
That's a work day. Welcome.
Welcome. I'm thinking about when you're faced with something hard and the opportunity to grow, how easy it is to just throw up your hands when you become aware of something about yourself and just resign and be like, this is just who I am. I don't want to change. It's not, it's too hard to change. This is genetic for me, or this is an emotional struggle that I've been dealing with my whole life. It's just too late. I'm just going to keep living the way that I'm doing. I'm not going to try to change anything. What hope do we have or encouragement do we have to someone who might find themselves in that place?
Well, that's first name that people often have or suffer from a dualistic type thinking, where it's like either they're all successful and they figure it out and they overcome whatever struggle it is, or they fail. So if they don't make it all the way and it's not better, when whatever high beyond reasonable expectations they might have about what better looks like, they often will just stop because, it's not, or not arriving. We're not getting to this high mark or this high
Mhm.
water line. And so there's a space of normalization of like, we all are in process. We're all never going to arrive at completion of something in terms of our health journey because, like, literally we are dying one day at a time. Like, we're one day closer to the end. That's very depressing. Welcome melancholy Eeyore into the conversation. But like, there is a certain level of that's true. Can we accept that, or can we keep trying to avoid this idea that even though we are running out of time, so to speak, over our timeline, we can still progress and learn and grow and not just retreat? Like, we are called as followers of Christ to go towards people, to go towards him, to go towards hard things, not to just sit and bury our coins and wait because we're scared of what might happen next.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I think that's where your faith grows. That's where, I'm thinking like nobody beats King Koopa the first time. You just don't, right? You have to, and then you got to go back and do it better because you find all the secret coins. Like there's other things that along the path of growing that if we look at it in your mindset, Taylor, like you're saying, because I fall in that a lot of like, oh, I failed. It's like, no, I've learned that I can't make that jump on my own. Like I can't get to those magic coins that way. I'm going to have to go a different route. Whatever it is, I'm going to have to ask Taylor for help next time when I'm trying to have this conversation with my kid, whatever it might be. You realize that doing it the way you did it wasn't a failure. It just wasn't the right way. And take it back to the infant, right? Like the baby that's trying to learn to sit up. That I think was one of the coolest things I learned about child development is that we're so set on the milestones, right? As a physician that takes care of pediatrics a lot, you're thinking like, well, are these kids hitting their milestones? Are they rolling on time? They're crawling well? Are they doing all the things? And you're checking for milestones, but really neurologists, we're looking at, are they going through the proper process? Like, I don't mind if a child's delay is there if they're going through the steps. If they've skipped crawling, then we have to go back and redo it. But like a kid who's like sitting and falling a lot, that's a great sign. Like they're in it, they're doing it. Their brain is figuring out how are they going to sit for the rest of their life. And that's a great process. It's hard. If you have hardwood floors like we did when our kids were learning, it hurts. 'Cause you don't always catch them when they fall. And so there's pain that happens with that. But if we can remember those types of things when we're going through it and remembering all the promises that Christ has for us, we can really trust that it's going to get better. We just have to keep trying and maybe try a little different next time.
Yeah. And even the small space between, I think I can so quickly go to like, I need to do this big, huge thing to change this pattern in my life or to become healthier. We talked this week about 75 hard and
Oh,
how if we threw my body into 75 hard and I did it for 75 days, man, what would that do? And I was thinking last night, what if I just did something like that for 5 days, like 5 days at a time? Or what if I just lifted weights for 15 minutes 3 times a week? Like it doesn't have to be this huge
Yeah.
shift. And I think even sitting in the space of making the decision, how am I going to use the information that I have to implement change and to continue growing, even that is a space of hormesis because it's easier to not think about it at all. And so sometimes when I'm talking to people who have a lot going on health wise and are really struggling, but they're there and they are present in the office and they are taking steps and they're not just giving up and not leaving their house anymore. Maybe it's somebody who's retired and does not have to get out and continue working or continue trying to improve their health, but they're taking a step towards that, even by walking into our office. Or with Taylor, I'm sure you have clients who've been through really hard stuff and are coming in and like, it shows a lot of bravery for just to even start having the conversations and to start
Yeah.
asking, what can I change? What are small steps in what are small ways in my life that I can grow?
And I think celebrating those small steps, right? I think of a lot of times I will tell people, I'll draw a line on a paper and just say, this is your path. This is your health trajectory right now. You're heading this way. If we do one thing, you shift that line 1 degree. Let's just say you drink half of your body weight in ounces. We shift that, which is the required amount of water, by the way, if you're not drinking caffeinated beverages. You tick that line 1 degree and then you run it out on the paper for the rest of the paper, in 9 months, somebody doing that small change, you will be a different person next year if
Yeah.
all you do is change your water intake, right? Or all you do is work on deep breaths every day when that anxiety pushes in or whatever it might be. Pick one thing. And I think that's the place where 75 hard is so frustrating because a lot of us aren't ready for that. So you push into this thing where you're changing 14 things and then you burn out so fast because it's overwhelming to your system. And hormesis has limits, right? Like these are supposed to be small increments of stress, not
And it
75.
is called 75 hard. I mean, so you should know what you're getting into.
Sure.
Like, come on.
The name
Yeah.
itself
Yeah,
should tell
like it's
us.
not 75 moderate, it's hard.
Okay, so I would love to, number one, point out we're talking about this big concept and it could be kind of overwhelming. It's overwhelming for my brain to even know what to address in this podcast episode. But again, like these first podcast episodes that we are recording, we're kind of setting the stage for what we want to do in the future and trying to give people a very broad overview of where our minds are and where we're coming from so that when they listen to episode 35 or 70 down the road, they can hopefully go back and listen to the first few episodes and go, oh, that's where this started.
I'm just
However,
encouraged that you're
like,
going like we have 70 episodes coming. I was like, wow. Like, I mean, that's a hopeful
oh,
stance. Go for it, girl.
Hey, we
sure.
have 100 topics listed on the Google Doc. So
Yeah,
just be ready.
we
Be
might
ready,
need to
babes.
edit and pare down and
And a lot of
focus.
those are going to turn into mini series, but like super practical. Abby, I hear you use the phrase symptoms are messengers and talk about even something as simple as fevers and how that pushes our body towards growth. Do you want to say anything about either of those topics right now?
Of course. I think they're just like the baby example and the child development example. Our bodies are made for hormesis. That's a part of how we stay healthy. And so fevers are a part of that. Fevers are super uncomfortable. And I feel like the older we get, the more uncomfortable they are. Like in an adult body, they're not fun. But, this comes back to our episode 0 when we talked about health information and is it causing you fear and anxiety or is it causing you education and empowerment? Fevers are doing a good work. And there's different inputs on that from my years of studying, that's killing stuff off. I've had old-timey pediatricians talk about like ones that were like trained in the 40s and 50s and were finishing their practice in the 80s that they would see huge growth in kids after they had a fever. So fevers are a great example of hormesis because they can be something that incites fear in us because it's so uncomfortable and it's horrible to see your kids have a fever because their faces are so red and they're lethargic and they're not themselves. They're not running around, And as adults, they feel horrible, but we're built for fevers to do a good work in us. And there's multiple different perspectives from clearing out a virus and helping your body kill off what shouldn't be there or bacteria or whatever it might be to where some pediatricians that I trained under that were trained in like the 40s and 50s would say, if you watch a kid after a fever, you'll see a huge growth in an area. So we've seen that in our kids of letting a fever run its course, keeping kids, cuddled up and warm baths and not to give Tylenol or ibuprofen. And that allows for them to clear out whatever. I don't know the exact physiology, but we know that once you go through that, on the other end, you feel better. And in kids, we'll see increase in like physical growth, possibly verbal. I remember our one daughter, when she got done with the fever, she wasn't a big talker. And then like she got through whatever. And then it was like, oh, there's her voice. So neat, like really cool how we're built for that. That's just one kind of basic example, but it does go back to, okay, how are you looking at this in your body? That's one messenger, but there's pain's a messenger. I tell people all the time that pain kind of whispers at you first, usually, unless you like hit your thumb with a hammer. But like typically, when it comes to aches and pains, it aches first, and that's your body starting to tell you something. And the more you ignore it, then it gets louder until it really gets your attention. And unfortunately for us procrastinators, the more we put that off, the more work we have to do to get back to homeostasis. So I think you get the gist.
It was great.
No, that is great. Even as you're talking about that, I'm thinking about the window of tolerance and how like even fevers are something like if our window of tolerance refers to the capacity that we have to handle something and still stay regulated, what we have the capacity to handle while staying generally regulated. When something like a fever happens that does push us out of what is comfortable.
I totally get what you're saying. When that happens, your tolerance changes. So if you've never heard, I mean, maybe babe, you just want to take over the window of tolerance
I mean, I
discussion?
think from an emotional part of this, it's just like, you have in terms of our body's systems for dealing with stress, our sympathetic nervous system. When you stand up to walk, you're activating some level of your sympathetic nervous system. Like when you run, especially away from like a tiger or a threat, it's a higher. And so you have your normal window that you're supposed to kind of like you kind of go up, and then your parasympathetic kicks in, and it's like the brakes, and it comes down. You're supposed to kind of our day is kind of supposed to be like this moderate wave with some spikes here and there of like activation. The problem then is when people go hyper and they're kind of up here in persistent, constant stress, which physiologically puts your body under duress because your sympathetic nervous system's always active. And then you kind of get adrenal fatigue or adrenal burnout, and you just you don't sleep well because you're constantly having cortisol and adrenaline in your system. Or you go hypo and you're so lethargic that you're almost like a sloth and you don't even get out of bed, and everything's slow. Your brain is slow. I see that kind of tenor from a lot of people that just drink soda all the time, like no water, just soda. Like they're aching and slow because their blood is sludge. And it's all about co-regulation, right? Like it's all about, well, how do we get into our window of tolerance? Well, you calm your system down. Well, how do we calm our system down? People help. Like, oh yeah, I saw that thing too. It wasn't that big of a deal. Oh, maybe I'm overreacting. Come back down, right? And so co-regulation happens, but also self-regulation, breathing, acknowledging that you can think differently, shift your focus away from something, because the sympathetic nervous system isn't our first line of defense. That's what people misunderstand about our bodies. It's like social engagement is our first line of defense. It's being with people in the midst of craziness. If we were in a cafe and someone ran through the cafe screaming, we would look at the threat, then we'd look at each other and go, "Did you see that?" And they were like, "That was crazy." But if it's like, maybe he's a robber, now we're like, "Oh, we need to go," or we need to act. Now it's sympathetic. We moved out of what's called the ventral vagal into the sympathetic, and so our conception of what it means to regulate in the window of tolerance is more about connection to people, holding the idea of connection to people, being able to ground ourselves and resting and being still. But people won't be still because it's uncomfortable. Because when you're still, your brain brings to mind all these things that you have not thought about or have avoided, even if it's from 25 years ago, that time you pushed Billy off the slide. Like you're like, oh, I feel so bad. Is Billy okay? Like I'd go back and say something if I could. Where is Billy? Have I found Billy? Would I say something? Like, and we kind of have these wounds, these incomplete circles that we haven't worked through all the way. And so there's just a lot there to unpack. And I'll stop talking before I just rabbit trail the whole thing into maybe a ditch.
No, you just rabbit trailed my brain into like 13 different podcast episodes. So
that's always my goal.
Put us at 113,
that's always my goal,
babe.
to make more.
It's beautiful how much of that goes with like just basic physiology of your body checks in, assesses the threat, and then moves out. And I think that from a physical standpoint, the window of tolerance, what I see people struggling with a lot is like, if your window of tolerance is here, you think of something like 75 hard and you want to blow open the window shade and put this huge thing on yourself. And it's like that ends up working against you. Whereas if you're working on the little things, you slowly build it up. And maybe that's working on, I never hang out with my friends anymore. I'm going to schedule a Friday morning coffee every other week with my good friend that I feel safe with, and I can process me pushing Billy off the slide or
Poor
whatever random
Billy.
thing
Oh
that I need
gosh.
space for. I know, poor Billy. But that gives you space to then have those conversations and process through the stuff that on day to day you're just too busy to do.
And just a
Yeah.
note, there's no Billies that were harmed in these episodes or these lifetimes. I don't even know a Billy to push off a slide, so just want to let that be known.
Oh,
Yeah.
phew. Well, what I'm hearing from both of you on like the mental health and the physical side of the window of tolerance is that you're not stuck with that same amount of capacity. Abby, what you're explaining is with fevers and with putting little amounts of stress on our bodies, you're talking about it widening. And Taylor, I think what those peaks and valleys of hypoarousal or hyperarousal give us, it outside of the window of tolerance, those things over time serve to widen our
Can't
capacity
they can't
just
they
a little
can't they
bit. No?
can, but
Okay.
are we paying attention to allow them? Like, I mean,
Mm,
like there has to be some intentionality of engaging with that as opposed to just trying to get through it and experiencing it. Like you can have a stressful day and you're just like bouncing like a ping pong from one thing to the next and not actually paying attention to how that interaction with the store clerk who was maybe a jerk in some fashion is affecting maybe making you more upset or make you more stressful. If you're not paying attention to that, you're not going to widen any capacity to do anything. You're just skating through. It's all head. You're no body, right? And
Yeah.
so, like in SE, like what we use, somatic experiencing is like think about go towards something, sit with it on maybe a fringe. Like again, my beach analogy with emotions, like sit on the beach. Sometimes that's a lot of activation for somebody. But the longer we sit there, the more we get used to something. Because don't we all get used to things as we do them more? Muscle memory,
mhm,
familiarity. I mean, let's be clear. Most of the toxic and dysfunctional things that people do, they're not good, but they're known. And known trumps good because it's easier to do something that's known
mm,
and has muscle memory, comfortable as opposed to what is good, right? And so you gain capacity as you sit in the midst of something. And so, like, you sit
mhm,
on the beach with the emotions like of anxiety and like notice that your body isn't going to die. Oh, well, what if I get a little closer to this maybe memory or this experience that is, oh, so maybe my feet aren't touching the water, but I can see where the water is coming up. Oh, that's a little bit more. Okay, we stay there and then maybe we back up for a period of time. And so it's just like we don't have to be always going towards. Sometimes there is growth in taking a step back and resting as well. So
Hmm.
mhm. And I think you bring up some good points as far as just like breathing. I think about sitting on the beach, and the first thing I do is start breathing more deep because it smells good and I'm more relaxed. But this space of when we're running through our day, helping our body shift and go from one part of our nervous system to another, it needs a transition time. There's no on off
yeah.
switch, right? We're talking about hormones communicating and traveling through the body. And although our body is miraculous and can do things really quickly, before you walk in the house from a busy day of work, put on your favorite song and spend 3.5 minutes just breathing the song or singing the song or dancing
Or
the
don't
song,
walk in the
whatever it might
house
be.
and just go back in your car and leave. I've
Taylor's
done
done that
this.
before.
This has happened. Like I just drive around the block. I don't leave forever. I just kind of like there's a lot happening in there. I have had a number of clients today. I don't have the emotional. I have not done a good job of transitioning or preparing myself physiologically and mentally for the chaos I'm about to walk into. And
Hmm.
so I'll go stand in the driveway and look at the stars and I'll breathe, or I'll go for a drive and listen to a song. And then I come back in a better state of mind to engage whatever chaos was happening in the house that day, and I'm better for it. People interacting with me aren't suddenly brought into my toxic pit of overwhelm or whatever it is. And so it's just better.
Mhm.
So
One thing we haven't talked about yet is the idea of genetics. And you alluded to it, Kirsten, just a
That seems
little
like a
bit.
big
You
topic to
said,
just like skate over, though.
well, and we're
Well,
going to bleed, like it's going to bleed into other episodes, maybe the next one. But I just wanted to plant the seed. Sometimes you alluded to it earlier, Kirsten, when you said that sometimes we just think this is who we are or this is how we're programmed. And we kind of get this like we stuck mindset of like, well, this is just how it's going to be. And I think with what you're saying, Taylor, of driving around the block, or what I'm saying with breathing, is doing these small, what many people today call mindful practices, again, like water, if you do them regularly, you're shifting the habits that may be causing you to be who you become. And in order to go back or to develop a new homeostasis point, these little things of doing them, again, it might only be 3.5 minutes a day in one song, but if you change the way you come into the home after work, holy mackerel, you could change your whole evening. You can change the whole family dynamic over time, right? Because other people are going to have to regulate to your new
Mhm.
norm and it's going to be different. But it's just that space to, I just want to say that to encourage people of like these things, we want to give you tangible practices, and the suggestions that we make, we are trying really hard to make sure that they are small and doable. Unlike the 75 hard. I've tried the 75 hard. I'm not hating on it. I'm just
Hey,
saying
I did the
you can get
75 hard.
I know I pooped out. He did great. I just want people to realize that you're so much more successful and those changes happen long term, and that trajectory changes long term when we can do those little almost micro dose changes to shift our habits. And our habits, as we'll talk about in the next episode, can shift our genetics. And we don't have to be so stuck in this is who I am, this is how it's always going to be mindset.
Well, I think it's most important when we talk about emotional things because like anxiety can be so big and overwhelming and all these things. And I'm like, well, I can't do that when I'm anxious. And I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, because you haven't learned how to do it when you're not anxious. So you're not going to be able to do it when you're anxious.
Mm.
Like if I'm playing baseball, I'm not going to just learn to hit in a game. I'm going to take practice swings. I'm going to go to the cage. I'm going to hit off a tee. I'm going to do a lot of things. And so same thing with some of these smaller intentional things of journaling or breathing or just sitting and being for a period of time. Like you do that when you don't have activation, when there's not chaos. You do it when you're set apart from those things so that when you are in those moments, you do have the opportunity to kind of like, oh, wait, I have an option. I can do something different than this dysfunctional or negatively affecting me thing that I've done for
Mm.
25 years. Like I can do something different and begin to make a new neural pathway, a new pattern. So,
Ooh, neuroplasticity.
hey, that's what we're talking about. But if you want to be fancy and use big words, you can do that too.
that's one of my favorite words.
Do we want to name favorite words? My
That's
favorite word's
been dropped out
serendipity. So
there.
like,
Okay, so this feels like a great place to start closing out because you mentioned we're going to talk more about genetics in the next episode. And just to recap some great little tidbits that y'all gave, practical ways to apply this would be taking a beat before you get home or before you walk into the door, breath work, journaling, drinking water. I also would say going back to the hey, you've got spinach in your teeth and we need community and we need other people around us to point things out in our lives. I would say another practical thing that people could take away is to just think about who in your life is helping point out blind spots and who are you taking courageous steps towards and pointing things out in their life as well.
can we acknowledge
And who
also, we talk a lot about pointing out blind spots or growth areas. Can you just affirm people as well? I
Oh,
mean,
yes.
like I mean, that's my love language is kind words and encouragement
Encouragement.
words. And Abby will say she has not been the best at that historically, but she does a lot better because she's been growing with it. But we get so focused on, as practitioners, addressing wrong or addressing need or addressing gaps that I literally try to tell each of my clients how brave they are, how strong they are, how well they're doing. And they look at me and they go,
Mhm.
bro, shut up. I hate when you say that. Like they say that, but I think they like it because like we need to be encouraged in the midst of hard things and struggle to keep going.
That's a really good point. And I
Amen.
think to your point, Kirsten, who are those people for you? Because you might not have anybody in your life speaking those blind spots to you. And you might have people speaking blind spots to you that aren't safe people that you don't want to hear about the blind spots from. And so recognizing, like, okay, well, if so and so is their way of giving you blind spots might be like criticizing you and tearing you down and not helpful because they don't know your situation that you're in, versus somebody close to you who knows and can encourage you, like Taylor saying, but also give you feedback, telling those people, hey, you're my feedback person. Like, I'm okay with you stepping on my toes and telling me I have spinach in my teeth because I want to hear it from you. And I think the way you say it to me, it doesn't make me defensive, right? I think that's really important to identify those people, not just so that people know, but so that you know, because there's a lot of people in our lives that are naysayers that if you let their voice get into your head all the time, it is going to break you down and it isn't going to be helpful. So just that piece too I guess that's a boundary, maybe it's a mental boundary, but one to be aware of.
All
I
right.
like when we all get the smiles, like at the end, it's like we all smile. Okay, yeah, you done? We're all good?
I have plenty more to say, but it's leading into the family systems and genetic talk, so I'll just shut up.
Oh, sounds like another podcast episode.
All right. So our next podcast is going to be more about family and genetics. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. If you enjoyed it, we would appreciate you liking it and giving us a review because it will help other people find us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.